My name is Claire Bennett, and I am 38 years old. The night my younger sister announced her engagement at our parents' anniversary dinner, nobody asked if I was happy for her. They asked if I had a notepad. My mother actually said those words. "Claire, go get a notepad. We need to start planning immediately. Not congratulations to Megan first. Not let's celebrate tonight and worry about logistics tomorrow." Just an immediate assumption that the unmarried daughter in the room existed to make the married life of everyone else easier. I want to tell you who I am before I tell you what happened, because the ending of this story only makes sense if you understand the years that built up to it. I have been single for most of my adult life, not because something is wrong with me, despite what my family seemed to believe, but because I built a career in commercial photography that required me to travel constantly during my 20s. And then, in my 30s, I simply never found the specific kind of partnership that felt worth rearranging my life for. I have a townhouse in Denver that I bought myself at 32. I have a business that employs 2 assistants. I have a life that is, by any reasonable measure, full and chosen and mine. But in my family, a full chosen life that doesn't include a husband and children is treated as a kind of vacancy. An empty room waiting to be furnished with other people's obligations. My sister Megan is 33. She got engaged to a man named Brett after dating him for 14 months. He is, by every account I have personally witnessed, a kind enough man with an unremarkable personality and an extraordinary ability to let other people handle anything that requires effort. Megan is similar in this way. She has always been the daughter my mother described as the sweet one, which in my family was a polite way of saying the one who expects things to be done for her, while I was always described as the strong one, which was a polite way of saying the one who does them. When my mother said go get a notepad at that anniversary dinner, I want you to understand that this was not a new pattern emerging. This was the most recent expression of a pattern that had existed my entire life. When my parents needed someone to manage their finances after my father's small business nearly collapsed when I was 26, I was the one who spent 8 months untangling it, while Megan, then 21, was excused because she was still finding herself. When my grandmother needed daily visits during her decline, I was the one who drove 45 minutes each way 3 times a week for 2 years, while Megan visited on weekends when her schedule allowed, which her schedule frequently did not allow. When anyone needed anything that required reliability, patience, and the absorption of inconvenience, the family's eyes turned to me with the same unconscious certainty that water finds the lowest point in a landscape. I had spent years trying to set boundaries gently. I had learned, through painful repetition, that gentle boundaries in my family were treated as opening offers in a negotiation rather than as actual limits. If I said I can help with that, but not every week, within a month it had become every week, because nobody had ever actually agreed to the but not every week part. They had simply heard the help with that part and discarded the rest as negotiable. So when my mother said go get a notepad, something in me, for the first time in my life, simply did not move. I stayed in my chair. I said, "Congratulations, Megan, this is wonderful news," and then I picked my wine glass back up and took a sip, and I let the silence that followed do whatever work it needed to do. My mother, whose name is Diane, looked at me with an expression I had seen many times before, the specific expression of someone recalibrating a request because the obvious version had not worked. "Claire," she said, slightly more carefully this time, "we should really start thinking about venues. Your sister doesn't have time to manage all of this with her job." I said, "Megan can hire a wedding planner if she needs help managing it." The table went quiet in the particular way that happens when someone says a sentence that is obviously, factually true, and yet somehow still feels like an act of violence in the room it was spoken into. My sister's fiancé, Brett, laughed nervously. The laugh of a man who has just realized he is sitting at a table where something more complicated than wedding planning is occurring. Megan's face did something complicated. A flash of surprise followed quickly by an expression I recognized as calculation, the specific look she gets when she is deciding how to convert a moment of resistance into a moment of guilt. "Claire," she said, her voice taking on the wounded register she had perfected over 33 years, "I just thought, since you're so good at this stuff, and since you're not, busy with your own wedding planning." She did not finish the sentence, but she did not need to. The unfinished sentence was the whole point. Since you don't have a husband, since you don't have children, since your life is apparently less occupied by the things that count as real obligations in this family, you have room in your schedule for mine. I did something then that surprised even me. I smiled, genuinely, and I said, I would love to help you find a wedding planner. I know several excellent ones in Denver. My father, Robert, who had been quiet the entire dinner in the way he is quiet during most family dynamics, finally spoke. Claire, don't be difficult. Your sister is getting married. This is a happy occasion. I am being entirely undifficult, I said. I am suggesting we hire a professional to do a professional job. That is the opposite of difficult. That is, in fact, the easiest possible solution for everyone involved. What followed was 3 weeks of escalating pressure that I want to walk you through carefully, because the pattern matters more than any single incident, and because I suspect many of you listening have lived inside a similar pattern without ever having the language to describe it clearly. The first wave was guilt, delivered primarily through my mother. Phone calls that began with "How are you?" and pivoted, within 90 seconds, to "Your sister is so stressed. She doesn't have anyone helping her. I don't understand why you would choose to be unavailable during such an important time for this family." The second wave was comparison, delivered through both my mother and occasionally my father. "Your cousin Stephanie planned her sister's entire wedding, and she works full-time too. I don't understand what makes your situation so different." What made my situation different, though I rarely said this out loud because I had learned it would be received as an attack rather than as information, was that Stephanie had wanted to plan her sister's wedding. Stephanie had volunteered enthusiastically because she loved that kind of project, and her sister had asked rather than assumed. The difference between a gift freely given and labor extracted through guilt is not a small difference. It is, in fact, the entire difference, the only difference that actually matters. The third wave, which arrived in the 4th week, was the wave that I now recognize as the turning point of this entire story, though I did not recognize it as such in the moment. Megan called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice doing the particular trembling thing it does when she wants something and has decided that tears will be more effective than logic. "Claire, I'm overwhelmed. I can't do this without you. Brett's mother wants to be involved in everything, and I don't know how to manage her, and the budget, and the venue, and I just need you. I need my sister. I want to be honest about something here, because honesty is the entire point of telling you this story." That phone call worked on me, in the moment, exactly the way it was designed to work. I felt the old pull, the deeply trained reflex that says when someone I love says they need me, the correct response is to provide whatever they are asking for, regardless of cost to myself. I said I would help her find a planner. I said I would sit with her for an afternoon and help her create a budget and a timeline that a professional could then execute. I offered, genuinely and with real intention, a meaningful amount of help that respected both her need and my limits. She said okay, in a small voice, and we made a plan to meet that Saturday. What happened instead, when Saturday arrived, is the reason I am telling you this story at all. I arrived at my parents' house at 11 in the morning, as planned, carrying my laptop with a wedding planning template I had built the night before, genuinely excited, despite everything, to spend an afternoon helping my sister start her engagement off on solid footing. When I walked into the dining room, the table was covered in printed venue brochures, fabric swatches, a 3-ring binder labeled in my mother's handwriting Megan's wedding, and a whiteboard, an actual whiteboard, propped against the wall with a project timeline already partially filled in. My mother greeted me with the specific brightness of someone who believes they have solved a problem through superior planning. "We got started already," she said, "since we wanted to make good use of your time today. I've broken down the major categories and assigned rough deadlines. You're handling venue research, catering coordination, and the guest list spreadsheet. Megan will do the dress and the registry. I'll handle flowers and decor." I stood in the doorway of that dining room for a moment, looking at a whiteboard that had quietly transformed an afternoon of help into a full operational role, complete with deadlines, assigned without my input, for a wedding that was not mine, for a sister who had asked for an afternoon and received an org chart. I want you to notice something about what had just happened, because I think it is the single most important pattern in this entire story. Nobody had asked me anything in that moment. My mother had not said, "Claire, would you be willing to take on venue research as an ongoing responsibility?" She had simply assigned it, on a whiteboard, in advance of my arrival, with the unstated assumption that my physical presence in the room constituted consent to whatever had already been decided. I said, "This is not what we discussed." My mother's face did the recalibration thing again. "We just wanted to be organized. You're so good at this kind of thing, it seemed efficient to map it out." "I'm going to help Megan create a budget and a timeline today," I said. "That is what I offered, and that is what I am here to do. I am not taking on ongoing responsibility for venue research, catering coordination, or a guest list spreadsheet." Megan, who had been quiet during this exchange, suddenly looked up from her phone with genuine confusion. "But you said you'd help." "I am helping," I said. "Right now, today, with a budget and a timeline." "But who's going to do the venue research?" she said. And I want you to notice that this question was asked as though venue research were a law of physics rather than a task that she, the bride getting married, could perform herself, or pay someone else to perform, or ask a friend to perform, or simply not worry about until a later date. "You will," I said. "Or you'll hire someone. Or Brett will help you." There are many possible answers to that question, and none of them require me to become a part-time unpaid wedding coordinator for the next 8 months. My father, who had wandered in during this exchange holding a cup of coffee, said, "Claire, can we not do this today? Your sister is stressed enough." "I am also stressed," I said, surprising myself with how clearly the sentence came out. "I have a business with 2 employees who depend on me. I have my own life to manage, and I came here today to give 4 hours of my Saturday to help my sister get organized. I did not come here to be assigned a project role on a whiteboard I had no input into." What happened next is the part of the story I think about most often, because it revealed something I had not fully understood about my family's dynamic until I saw it laid out so plainly. My mother said, "Fine," in the voice she uses when fine means the opposite of fine, and she walked into the kitchen. Megan's eyes filled with tears, and she said, "I just don't understand why you're being like this, in front of all the wedding planning. I thought you'd be happy for me." "I am happy for you," I said. "I am unhappy about being assigned unpaid labor without being asked." Brett, sitting at the end of the table with the specific stillness of a man trying not to be noticed during a family conflict, said nothing at all, which I noted, because Brett's silence throughout this entire process turned out to be its own kind of statement. I stayed for the 4 hours I had originally offered. I helped Megan build an actual workable budget. I gave her a timeline template and walked her through how to use it. I gave her the names of 3 excellent wedding planners in Denver, 2 of whom I knew personally and trusted. I left at 3 in the afternoon, having done exactly what I had said I would do and not one task more. The text messages began before I had even reached my car, my mother first. "I don't know why you had to make today so difficult." Megan, 20 minutes later. "I feel like you ruined my engagement weekend." My father, an hour after that. "Your mother is very upset. Could you call her and smooth this over?" I did not call to smooth anything over. I drove home, made dinner, and spent the evening editing photos from a corporate shoot I had completed that week, doing the work of my actual life, the life that apparently did not count as a real obligation in the calculus my family had been running on me for years. Over the following 6 weeks, the pressure did not stop. It simply changed shape, becoming more sophisticated, more layered, more difficult to refuse without appearing unreasonable, which I now understand was likely not entirely conscious on my family's part, but was nonetheless the predictable result of decades spent training me to absorb whatever needed absorbing. My mother began what I can only describe as a campaign of strategic involvement. She would call me with what she framed as simple questions. "Claire, quickly, do you think ivory or white is better for the invitations? Claire, can you just look at this caterer's website and tell me what you think? Claire, Megan found a venue she loves, but needs someone with a good eye to go look at it with her. Would you mind?" Each individual request was small enough that refusing it felt disproportionate, petty, the kind of refusal that would make me look difficult over something trivial. This is, I now understand, the actual mechanism of the trap. Not one enormous, unreasonable demand that would be easy to refuse, but dozens of small, reasonable-sounding requests that, taken individually, seem impossible to say no to, and that, taken together, reconstruct the entire unpaid coordinator role I had explicitly declined. I want to be honest that I did not navigate this perfectly. I said yes to the venue visit because Megan asked directly and seemed genuinely anxious about making a 5-figure decision alone, and I told myself this was a one-time favor between sisters rather than a recurring obligation. I said yes to looking at the caterer's website because it took 10 minutes and seemed like a reasonable accommodation. What I discovered 3 weeks into this pattern was that each yes was being logged somewhere, accumulated as evidence that I was, in fact, willing and available, evidence that was then deployed whenever I tried to say no to something larger. The moment that crystallized this for me happened on a Thursday evening in late September, 11 weeks before the wedding date Megan and Brett had set. I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. A woman's voice, professional and slightly confused, introduced herself as Patricia from Hilltop Gardens, the venue Megan had ultimately selected. "Hi, I'm calling to confirm the final walkthrough appointment for the Bennett Hayes wedding. I have you listed as the primary coordinator contact. Is that correct?" I sat in my kitchen, phone against my ear, feeling something settle into place with a clarity I had not experienced in the previous 11 weeks of incremental erosion. "I am the sister of the bride," I said carefully. "I am not the wedding coordinator. Can you tell me who provided my information as the primary contact?" There was a pause, the sound of papers shuffling. The form lists Claire Bennett as the day of coordinator and primary point of contact for vendor questions. It was submitted by Diane Bennett. My mother had filled out a vendor form, listing me, without my knowledge or consent, as the official day of coordinator for my sister's wedding. I want to walk you through what I did next, because I think the sequence matters as much as the eventual outcome. I did not call my mother immediately. I did not call Megan. I thanked Patricia for the information, asked her to email me a copy of the form for my records, which she did within the hour, and then I sat with what I had just learned for the rest of that evening, allowing myself to feel the full weight of it rather than reacting from the first hot wave of anger. What I felt, sitting at my kitchen table reading a PDF with my name typed into a box labeled Day of Coordinator, a box I had never agreed to occupy, was not surprise. It was recognition. This was not a new betrayal. This was the oldest pattern in my family, finally rendered in a form I could print out and hold in my hands. My consent had never actually been required for anything. My family had simply assumed it in advance and informed relevant third parties accordingly, the same way they had assumed it at the anniversary dinner, the same way they had assumed it with the whiteboard, the same way they had assumed it for 38 years. I called my closest friend, a woman named Renata who has known me since college and has watched this family dynamic unfold for nearly 2 decades with a specific outside perspective that lets her see patterns I sometimes lose track of from inside them. She listened to the entire story without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "Claire, this is the clearest evidence you've ever had. They put it in writing. They gave it to a stranger. You finally have something you can point to that isn't just a feeling." She was right, and her framing gave me something I had been missing for 38 years, which was the understanding that documentation, not emotion, was going to be the thing that finally made my family's pattern visible, even to themselves. I want to tell you what I did over the following 10 days, because I think the methodical nature of it matters. I did not confront my mother emotionally. I requested, calmly, in writing, copies of every document related to the wedding that listed my name in any capacity. I discovered, over the course of those requests, that I was listed not only as the day of coordinator with the venue, but as a secondary contact with the caterer, as the point person for the rental company providing chairs and tableware, and most remarkably, on a printed wedding day schedule that Megan had created, which had an entire column labeled Claire's responsibilities, including items I had never agreed to, never been asked about, and in several cases had no relevant skills for, including, memorably, hair and makeup logistics coordination, a task I genuinely do not know how to perform. I requested a meeting with my mother, my father, and Megan, all together, at a neutral location, a coffee shop near my office rather than the family home, because I had learned enough about this family's dynamics to know that meeting on their territory meant meeting under their rules. They agreed, somewhat reluctantly, my mother nodding that she didn't understand why I needed to make such a production out of a simple wedding. I arrived early, the way I always do for anything important, and I brought a folder. Inside that folder were printed copies of every document I had requested: the venue form, the caterer confirmation, the rental company contact sheet, the wedding day schedule with my responsibilities column, and a simple one-page summary I had written the night before, listing every task I had been assigned across these documents without my knowledge or consent. When my mother, father, and sister arrived and sat down, I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I had spent 11 weeks moving steadily toward the specific clarity that comes when you finally understand that the only thing that has ever worked in this family is putting things in writing and refusing to argue with feelings when facts are available. I said, "I want to show you something." I slid the folder across the table. My mother opened it first, flipping through the pages with an expression that shifted, page by page, from confusion to something closer to recognition. Though I want to be honest that recognition in my mother does not always arrive with accountability attached. "What is this?" she said, though I think she understood exactly what it was. "These are the documents where I have been listed, without my knowledge, as responsible for various aspects of Megan's wedding. I am not the day of coordinator at Hilltop Gardens. I never agreed to be the contact for the rental company. I do not know how to coordinate hair and makeup logistics, and nobody ever asked me if I was willing or able to perform any of these roles." Megan looked down at the schedule, the one with her own handwriting in the column labeled Claire's responsibilities, and I watched something complicated move across her face. "I just assumed," she started, and then stopped, because I think even she heard how that sentence was going to end before she finished it. "You assumed," I repeated. "That is the entire problem. Nobody in this family has asked me a direct question and waited for a direct answer in 11 weeks. You have assumed my participation and then informed vendors, printed schedules, and built entire planning structures around that assumption, without ever checking whether the assumption was correct." My father, who had been quiet, said, "Claire, we just thought you'd want to help your sister." "I do want to help my sister," I said. "I have helped my sister. I spent 4 hours building her a budget. I gave her 3 planner recommendations. I went to 1 venue visit because she asked me directly and I had the time. Every single one of those things I agreed to. None of these," I tapped the folder, "were things I agreed to." My mother, and this is the moment I want you to really hear, said, "So what? You want an apology?" I said no. "I want you to understand that this stops today. I am removing myself from every vendor contact list by end of day tomorrow. I am not coordinating anything on the wedding day. I will attend as a guest. I will be in photographs as the sister of the bride, and I will give a toast if asked, because I love my sister and I want to celebrate her marriage. I will not be performing any unpaid labor for this event." Megan started crying then, the tears that had worked on me for 38 years, and I felt the old pull, the familiar gravitational tug toward fixing her distress regardless of cost to myself. I let the silence sit instead. After a long moment, Megan said, quietly, through the tears, "I don't know how to plan a wedding without you helping." And I said, the words that I think were the actual turning point of this entire story, the sentence I had never once said to my family in 38 years, "You don't have to plan it without help. You have to plan it without me specifically. Those are different problems with different solutions, and neither of them require my unpaid labor to be solved." I want to tell you what happened over the following week, because the fallout, much like in every story like this, did not arrive as a single dramatic explosion. It arrived in waves, each one smaller and more revealing than the last. The first wave was anger, primarily from my mother, who called me 3 times over the following 2 days, each call beginning with a variation of "I don't understand why you're being so cold about your own sister's wedding," and ending when I remained calm and did not escalate, with her hanging up first. The second wave was bargaining, delivered through Megan, who sent a long text message explaining that she felt abandoned, that she didn't understand why I couldn't just do a few small things to help, that surely removing myself from every single vendor contact was an overreaction to what had, in her words, just been a misunderstanding about who was doing what. I responded to that message once, in writing, the way Renata had suggested, with facts rather than emotional reciprocation. I wrote, I understand you feel overwhelmed. I am not available to coordinate vendors or manage day of logistics. I am available to attend as a guest and celebrate with you. If you need coordination help, a paid planner can provide that for a fee that reflects the actual value and time required for the work. The third wave, and this is the one that genuinely surprised me, was silence from Brett, who I had assumed, throughout this entire 11-week saga, was simply a passive bystander to his fiancée's family dynamics. 3 days after the coffee shop meeting, I received a single text message from him directly, the first time he had ever contacted me without Megan present. Claire, I want you to know I think you're right. I should have said something earlier. I'm sorry it took this for things to get sorted out. We've actually hired a coordinator now, and it's already so much easier. Megan's stressed, but I think she needed to hear it from you specifically. I sat with that message for a long time, because it told me something I had not fully considered, which is that I was likely not the only person in that family system who had recognized the pattern, simply the first person with enough accumulated frustration and enough hard evidence to finally name it out loud. The wedding happened 9 weeks later, in late November, at Hilltop Gardens, with a hired coordinator named Vanessa managing every logistical detail with the calm professional competence that comes from being paid appropriately for clearly defined work. I attended as a guest. I wore a dress I had bought for myself, not coordinated with anyone's color scheme, because nobody had asked me to coordinate anything, which felt like its own small, strange gift. I was seated at a table with my parents and several cousins. I gave a toast, a genuine one, about my sister's kindness and her tendency to see the good in people, because those things are true about her even within the complicated truth of this story. I danced with my father, who said almost nothing about the previous months, which I understood by then was as close to acknowledgement as he was capable of offering. I left the reception at 10 in the evening, drove myself home, and slept better than I had in months. I want to tell you what happened in the year that followed, because I think the long-term outcome matters more than the dramatic confrontation, and because I suspect many of you listening want to know whether setting a boundary like this actually changes anything, or whether it simply produces a temporary victory followed by the slow erosion back into the old pattern. The honest answer is that it changed some things permanently and other things not at all, and learning to live with that mixed outcome has been its own kind of growth. My mother has not fundamentally changed her assumptions about what she is entitled to ask of me. 6 months after the wedding, she called asking if I could help organize my father's 70th birthday party, framing it, predictably, as "You're so good at this kind of thing." I said I would love to attend and contribute financially toward the cost, but I am not coordinating logistics. She was quiet for a moment, and then said, "Fine, I'll handle it myself," in a tone that suggested she still believed this was a punishment being inflicted on her rather than a reasonable boundary. But she did, in fact, handle it herself, and the party happened, and it was perfectly nice, and nobody needed me to make a single phone call. This, I have come to understand, may be the actual outcome available to me. Not a mother who suddenly understands and apologizes for decades of assumption, but a mother who, when the path of least resistance through me is closed, finds another path, because it turns out there was always another path. She simply never had to look for it before. Megan and I have a different relationship now, one I genuinely believe is healthier than what we had before, though it required an uncomfortable period of recalibration. She does not call me for help with things in the casual, assuming way she once did. When she does ask for something, she asks directly, specifically, and accepts a no without retaliation, which has happened twice in the past year. Once when she asked if I could babysit her dog for a week, and I said I was traveling for work. And once when she asked if I could help her move apartments, and I said I could give her 2 hours on a Saturday rather than the full day she had hoped for. Both times, she said okay, and the request shrunk to fit my actual offer, rather than my offer being treated as an opening position to be expanded. I think about that difference often, because I believe it is the actual definition of a healthy family relationship versus the pattern I had lived inside for 38 years. A healthy relationship treats your stated limit as the limit. An unhealthy one treats your stated limit as a starting point for negotiation that will continue indefinitely, until you either give more or remove yourself from the negotiation entirely. I removed myself from the negotiation. That is, in the end, the entire story. I still see my family regularly. I still love them, in the complicated, unresolved way you love people who raised you and shaped you and occasionally extracted more from you than they had any right to extract. I have not burned every bridge or staged a permanent estrangement, because that was never actually what I wanted. What I wanted, what I think most people in situations like this actually want, was not revenge or separation, but simply to be asked rather than assumed, to be a person with limits that were respected rather than a resource to be allocated. I got that, eventually, imperfectly, partially. My mother still occasionally tests the boundary, the way water still occasionally finds a new lowest point in a landscape that has been reshaped but not entirely flattened. But I know how to say no now, clearly, in writing when necessary, without guilt attached to the refusal, and that knowledge, more than any single confrontation, is the actual thing that changed. If you are listening to this, and you recognize yourself in any part of what I have described, the dependable one, the unmarried one, the one whose time is treated as inherently less valuable because it isn't visibly occupied by a husband or children, I want to tell you the thing I wish someone had told me 20 years earlier. Your time is not a vacancy waiting to be filled with other people's obligations. Your help, when you choose to give it, is a gift, and a gift that is assumed rather than requested is not actually a gift at all. It is an extraction, dressed up in the language of family love, so that refusing it feels like a betrayal rather than what it actually is, which is simply a boundary, the most ordinary and reasonable thing a person can have. I kept every document from that folder. I still have it, in a drawer in my home office, not because I need it for any ongoing battle, but because it reminds me of the exact moment I learned that the only thing that had ever truly protected me was clarity, written down, impossible to argue with, impossible to reinterpret after the fact into something more convenient for everyone except me. I built a life. It is a full life, a chosen life, a life that does not require a husband or children to be considered legitimate, no matter what a whiteboard in my parents' dining room once silently assumed about how I should be spending my Saturdays. It is mine. And for the first time in 38 years, everyone in my family finally understands that it actually is. True life stories, real women. Real lives, real stories.